Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and more Lunar content for you guys. Today we're taking a quick faction overview of the U.S. forces here. So we're going to take a look from the commander down to the generic guys, all through the specialists, and kind of walk you guys through it. So in Lunar, the way the cards are sorted out here, so that 4 at the top there is how much oxygen you have. That's basically your resource for movement, actions, things like that. So you basically can do 4 things per turn, with some exceptions. On the bottom there, that integrity track is how much damage you can take, and once you get into the red, you actually are down in oxygen. So as your suits start taking damage, you have fewer resources to work with until you can hopefully repair it. And then that mass scale here on the side is how heavy you are, and that will come into play with how much gear you choose, what type of gear, but also during a mission you might be picking up certain objects that also will have weight, and if you get into the red there, you become overburdened, which will slow your movement speed down. So there's all kinds of neat little interactions that the game has there and really forces you to make some interesting choices. Then in the middle here, we have these 3 sets of icons. The first one is mobility, so basically how many inches you can move per oxygen spent on movement, but also will come into play when you're getting into hand-to-hand combat, like grappling and things like that. In the middle, competency is basically your bonus to specific tasks. Anything that requires a competency roll, essentially, having a bonus to that can be really good. And then finally, the shield there with the plus number, that's how tough you are, and will be used when you're defending against attacks. So NASA has a pretty good range of abilities across the board here. In general, most of the NASA forces will have a movement of 3, making them fairly fast and efficient per action, so you can get around the board. And again, in Lunar, we're playing on a 2x2. So the commander, first of all, has some really good perks here, and we have to take a commander anyway. So we got 3 for movement, plus 2 to his own competency, and 4. Pretty much all the NASA guys have a 4, so it's about the average. So decent toughness, but not as tough as the Soviets in general. But his ability is really what we're looking at here. So, and we basically want to keep him around as many of our other guys as possible. So we kind of want to work in pairs or groups at least, just to spread his buff around. So basically, +1 to any allied competency rolls that occur within 4 inches of this unit. Doesn't apply to his own competency rolls. He's already got the +2, but he can make guys like the next one, the generalist, have an actual just bonus built in, which is great for any competency, but he can make your specialists that much more effective. So, speaking of which, our generalists, which will be the majority of our forces here, pretty generic, move 3, no specific bonuses, and a +4, so pretty average. But again, if we can keep the commander there, he'll have a built-in +1. The combat specialist, as you might expect, is really good at combat. Has a built-in +2 to his competency, so he can really do a whole lot of everything, but is going to be geared very heavily towards getting equipped with a good weapon. Specifically, after shooting any ranged weapon, they can adjust their facing at no cost. So always nice, because now you're only going to get a limited amount of shots per game, but not having to spend an action on changing your facing if you do need to change that is pretty cool and efficient. When this unit is hit for the first time in a round, they may deflect that hit to any unit within 2 inches before damage is resolved. Can only be used once per round per single hit. All right, then. Moving along, guys. So we're going to the medical specialist. Again, move 3, defense 4, has a built-in +1 competency, just so pretty decent, as all the specialists are. They cannot use any ranged weapons, which kind of makes sense, right? Medical training. A resin patch can be used twice before discarding, so that's one of the gear options. We'll take a look at that when we do some gear reviews. So, but basically, you're getting just more value out of something that you're purchasing, and being able to essentially save more of your guys over time. But also, when within 3 inches of a unit that's out of action, that unit may make a free crawl in any direction. So, pretty cool. And then, as we mentioned, cannot use ranged weapons. Alrighty, guys, moving on. The mission specialist. Here's where we get into some of the slightly slower models of the faction. So Mission Specialist only has a move of 2, again, that built-in +1 competence, but where this model is going to excel is any of the missions that involve mining or interacting with other objects. This guy's just going to be a baller. So he's got a built-in +1 for all types of action or competency bonuses, but specifically with mining and interact, it's another +2, so he's already at +3 for those things, and if the commander were nearby, +4, so you're more or less going to automatically be successful in those actions, barring you roll a 1. So really can increase the efficiency of the mission if you plan correctly and if that's what's required. And keeping this guy alive to just breeze through and maybe mine out a complete node or something like that, take all the resources from it, and then just set your other guys up to be able to carry stuff. He's just great by himself, really doesn't even need any equipment that gives a bonus for mining, so that can save on some points and weight as well. So you could basically just go up, mine out a place, carry a couple of resources back, and really set yourself up good scoring-wise. And finally, the tech specialist is really going to help you out when you bring unmanned rovers. So again, a move of 2, built-in +1 competency, technical training. So when within 3 from an allied unmanned unit, the unmanned unit may make a free move action at no cost. So always nice. Again, free actions in a game like this where every action is super important and you will have a limited amount over the course of a game. Anything that's free is going to be super, super duper great. And I would assume here too, I think they've maybe updated that in an FAQ or something, but really should probably be like once per turn. But then when in base-to-base contact with an unmanned unit, they may reroll a failed repair action once per activation as well. So again, essentially getting another free action out of that with the repair. So always nice, again, to be super efficient. So anytime you're going to be running these unmanned units, well worth considering the specialist here and making sure that they're near the vicinity of these unmanned units, just to keep them up and running as well as possible and get that free movement as much as possible as well. One thing with these guys though, no rare weapons, which really you'd probably want to be saving your rares for the commander or the combat specialist. All things considered, that's probably the best option most of the time, but really these guys are just there to keep those unmanned units up and running at peak efficiency. So that's a quick glance at NASA, guys. Really cool faction, does a lot of great things, very much focused on being near certain allied units. Again, keeping the commander around as many guys as possible and being mission focused is where you're going to excel. The downside of the faction a little bit is, again, they have that average toughness where a lot of times, depending on if you're not packing the right weapons, it might be tougher to damage some factions out there, like pretty much all the Soviet suits are toughness 5, which we'll cover in the next video. So little things to consider, but overall just a great faction, can do pretty much everything. And anything, where you're looking at missions focused on mining or interacting, basically all your specialists, the mining specialist will be superb at what he does. All the specialists are really great at their tasks. It's just making sure you get that extra little bit of synergy with the commander, making sure that every action essentially becomes successful and keeping them alive as long as possible. So let us know in the comments, guys, if you have any questions on NASA. We'll have a video on the Soviets here soon, and then move on to some of the other factions as well. Thanks so much for watching.